The tank was burning. Black smoke climbed into the gray sky, thick and heavy, like a dark tower. Fire moved slowly across the metal body of the tank, cracking and popping with every second. Bullets hit the ground around it, kicking up dirt and sparks. The sound of war filled the open field, gunfire, shouting, and distant explosions. To anyone watching, the tank was already dead. And so was anyone inside it. Across the field, 250 enemy soldiers moved forward in a wide line. They were trained men. Hard faces. Clean weapons. Boots hitting the ground in perfect rhythm. They had won many battles before this one. Their commander raised his hand and the soldiers slowed down. He looked at the burning tank through his binoculars. "There is nothing left," one officer said. "No one survives that." The commander nodded. He had seen many tanks burn like this before. When a tank burns, everyone inside burns with it. This was just another dead machine. Just another empty battlefield. The soldiers began to walk closer. Step by step. Then, the tank moved. Not much. Just a small shift. A piece of metal fell from its side and hit the ground with a loud clang. The soldiers stopped. The commander lowered his binoculars. "What was that?" someone whispered. Smoke poured from the open hatch at the top of the tank. For a long second, nothing happened. Only fire. Only smoke. Then a hand appeared. It was shaking. Slowly, carefully, a young figure pushed himself out of the burning tank. He coughed hard as smoke filled his lungs. His clothes were dirty and torn. His face was black with ash and oil. He was not wearing a uniform. He was not wearing a helmet. He was just a boy. He dropped to the ground and fell to one knee. His hands were shaking so badly that he had to press them into the dirt to stay steady. He looked around, confused and scared, his eyes wide. He was 18 years old. A farm boy. He had never been in a real battle before today. The soldiers stared. Silence spread across the field. "Is this a trick?" one soldier asked. "No," another said slowly. "That's just a kid." The boy stood up. Fire burned behind him. Smoke rolled past his shoulders like dark wings. He looked small. Weak. Alone. He turned his head and saw the enemy line. 250 rifles. Pointed at him. His mouth opened slightly. His chest moved fast as he tried to breathe. His legs wanted to run. His heart was beating so loud it felt like it might break his ribs. He took one step back. Then another. The narrator's voice would later say, he was not a soldier. He was not trained. But in the next 1 hour, he would stop 250 enemies alone. But right now, he was just a scared boy standing in front of an army. The commander watched him closely. Something did not feel right. "No one comes out of a tank like that," the commander said. "Alive." The boy looked down at his hands. They were covered in oil and blood. He did not know which was his. His ears were ringing. The world felt slow and fast at the same time. Behind him, the tank exploded with a loud boom. The fire jumped higher. The shockwave pushed him forward, straight toward the enemy. Some soldiers raised their rifles. Others hesitated. The boy lifted his head. For a brief moment, his eyes met the commander's. The commander felt a strange chill. Not fear. Confusion. The boy did not look brave. But he did not look ready to die either. He looked like someone who had nothing left to lose. "Sir," an officer said, "orders?" The commander was silent. Then he spoke, his voice cold and sharp. "Kill him." The soldiers tightened their grip on their rifles. Now. The boy heard the sound. Metal clicking. Safety locks coming off. He closed his eyes for half a second. And then, he ran. Not away, but toward the battlefield. Gunfire exploded behind him. And the war truly began. The boy's name was Ethan Hale. Before the war came to his land, Ethan's world was small and quiet. He lived on a farm at the edge of a wide green valley. Every morning he woke up before the sun. He fed the animals. He worked the fields. His hands were strong, but his life was simple. He had never wanted to be a soldier. Ethan's father had been one. His father fought in the last Great War years before Ethan was born. He came back broken. His leg never healed right. At night, he woke up screaming, his hands shaking, his eyes full of fear. "When war starts," his father once said, "no one really wins." Those words stayed with Ethan. When his father died, the farm became Ethan's responsibility. His mother was sick. His younger sister depended on him. The farm was not just land. It was home. Then the war came closer. At first, it was only rumors. Soldiers moving through nearby towns. Distant gunfire on the horizon. Then one day, black smoke rose far away, and the ground shook under Ethan's feet. The enemy was coming. Ethan did not run. He stayed because he had nowhere else to go. On the morning everything changed. Ethan was fixing a broken fence when he heard engines. Heavy ones. Loud. Metal grinding against the earth. He climbed the hill and saw them. Enemy tanks. Moving toward the valley. Ethan's heart dropped. He ran back to the farm and tried to hide his family. He pushed his mother and sister into the old cellar under the barn. No matter what you hear, he told them, do not come out. His sister cried and grabbed his arm. You're coming too, she said. Ethan shook his head. I'll be right behind you, he lied. Minutes later, the first shells hit the valley. The earth exploded. Fire swallowed the fields. Ethan ran through smoke and chaos. He did not know where to go. He only knew one thing. If the tanks passed through the valley, his family would die. That was when he saw it. An abandoned Allied tank, damaged but still standing near the old road. Smoke came from its side, but the engine was quiet. The crew was gone. Maybe dead. Maybe fled. Ethan stared at it. He had never touched a tank before in his life. But he climbed inside. The metal was hot. The air smelled of oil and smoke. Inside, everything looked confusing. Levers, buttons, wires, warning lights. He did not understand any of it. But he remembered his father's stories. Machines follow rules, his father used to say. Fear does not. Ethan pulled levers at random. Nothing happened. Outside, enemy soldiers were getting closer. His hands shook as he tried again. The engine roared to life. Ethan jumped in fear, then laughed nervously. He had no idea what he was doing, but the tank was alive. He drove it forward, too fast. The tank crashed through a stone wall and into the open field. That was when the enemy saw him. They fired. The first hit shook the tank like a giant fist. The second hit set it on fire. Inside, Ethan screamed. Smoke filled the tank. Fire spread. The metal burned his skin. He could not see. He could not breathe. He thought of his sister. He thought of his father. Then everything went black. Now, he was back in the present, running across the battlefield as bullets chased him. Ethan dived behind a destroyed truck and pressed his back against cold metal. His chest burned. His ears rang. Dirt fell over his head as bullets hit around him. He was alive, but barely. The enemy soldiers were shouting. They spread out, moving carefully now. They no longer laughed. The boy from the burning tank had confused them. Ethan looked around the battlefield. Burned vehicles. Smoke clouds. Deep craters. Then he saw something. A machine gun, still loaded, left beside a dead soldier. Ethan swallowed hard. He crawled toward it. His hands stopped shaking. Not because he was brave, but because fear had turned into something else. Purpose. If he died here, the enemy would walk into the valley. Into his home. Into his family. Ethan grabbed the machine gun and pulled it close. Far away, the enemy commander watched through binoculars. That boy should be dead, he said quietly. But he's not. And for the first time that day, the commander felt something he did not like. Doubt. Smoke and fire covered the battlefield. The morning sun barely shone through the thick clouds of black. The boy, Ethan, crouched behind a destroyed truck, heart pounding. Around him, chaos reigned. Broken vehicles, scattered helmets, and the cries of injured soldiers filled the air. But Ethan did not run. He had a plan. Not a full plan. Not a perfect plan. But a plan born from desperation. He remembered the tank. The burning tank he had escaped from minutes ago. The one that terrified the enemy. It was still there. Still smoking. Still dangerous. And he knew somehow it could still fight. Ethan ran toward it. Every step was a risk. Bullets tore the air around him, hitting the ground, bouncing off metal and kicking up dust and clouds. His legs burned. His lungs screamed. But he ran. Reaching the tank, he paused. Flames licked the side. Black smoke rose from the engine. The enemy thought it was dead. They thought it was useless. That mistake would be their downfall. He climbed inside again, ignoring the fire. Every lever, every button was a guess. He remembered the first time the engine roared to life. Now he had no time to think. He pulled levers, twisted handles, and the tank rumbled. The metal beast moved. The enemy froze for a second. A tank moving again? Alone? Impossible. Ethan aimed the turret. He had seen soldiers do it in old war pictures. He tried to follow the path of the enemy vehicles. He fired. The first shot hit a truck. It exploded in a ball of fire. Smoke and debris flew into the air. Enemy soldiers screamed, diving for cover. The second shot hit another vehicle. A burning vehicle slid across the field, crashing into a pile of rubble. More screams. The enemy hesitated. Ethan's hands were shaking, but he felt something he had never felt before. Control. Power. Fear turned into adrenaline. The tank roared forward, crushing small debris under its heavy tracks. Bullets bounced off the thick metal. Ethan peeked through the periscope. Enemy soldiers tried to flank him from the left. He spun the turret, fired, and a group of soldiers dropped to the ground. Some ran. Most froze. From a distance, the enemy commander watched in disbelief. "That is one boy, controlling a tank," he muttered. Impossible. But it was real. Ethan's tank was damaged. Flames from the engine burned hotter. Smoke filled the cabin. He could barely see. He coughed. He gasped for air. But he kept moving. Every second counted. Every shot counted. The enemy spread out, trying to surround him. They thought he was alone. They thought he could not hold them off. But Ethan was smarter than they expected. He used the wreckage, the smoke, and the fire to his advantage. Each shot was calculated. Each move created confusion. A truck loaded with ammunition rolled toward the field. Ethan fired. The truck exploded in flames, scattering soldiers in all directions. Another tank tried to advance. He hit its side with a lucky shot. Sparks flew. Smoke rose. The enemy hesitated. The commander shouted orders. "Concentrate fire. Take him down." But chaos had taken hold. Soldiers shot at each other by mistake. Some ran. Some hid. The boys seemed to appear everywhere. One moment behind a destroyed wall, the next inside the tank, firing blindly but effectively. Ethan's mind was racing. He was terrified. Every second he expected the tank to explode under him. Every second he expected to die. But he did not. He had no choice. He remembered the farm. His mother. His sister. He remembered his father's words about fear and rules. The rules of machines, of war, of survival. He used everything. Every instinct. Every memory. A squad of enemy soldiers tried to attack from behind. Ethan reversed the tank, rammed into a pile of rubble, and trapped them. He fired through the hatch, taking them down one by one. Each shot precise, each movement instinctive. Smoke and fire danced around him. The battlefield looked like hell itself. Yet, the boy stood as the only living thing capable of controlling the chaos. Minutes passed, or hours. Time had lost meaning. Ethan's tank was heavily damaged. Flames burned inside. Smoke filled the cabin. His hands were raw, cuts from the controls. His body shook with exhaustion. But he could not stop. Not now. Not ever. Then he saw them. The commander's personal squad, elite soldiers moving fast toward the tank. Their weapons ready. They knew this boy was the real threat. The tank alone could not hold them. They would take him down. Ethan swallowed hard. He had no more bullets in the machine gun. But he had something stronger, his mind. He created a path of fire, making the enemy think the tank had more soldiers inside. He revved the engine. He moved in a way that made them hesitate. Confusion spread. Fear spread. The commander's face turned pale. "What is this boy?" he whispered. "He is everywhere. Impossible." Ethan felt a strange clarity. He realized he was not just fighting. He was shaping the battlefield. He was bending fear. He was changing reality. And the enemy, 250 strong, was stopping. For the first time, the soldiers realized they could not predict him. They could not beat him. A single boy, a burning tank, and sheer willpower had stopped an army in its tracks. Ethan's tank was badly damaged. Smoke poured from every crack. Flames licked the sides of the metal, burning holes. Inside, Ethan coughed, his lungs filling with ash. His hands were black, raw from gripping the levers, his arms shaking from exhaustion. But he did not stop. The enemy soldiers, 250 strong, thought they had him cornered. They were trained. Organized. They had numbers, weapons, and experience. They thought a single boy could never hold them off. They were wrong. Ethan looked around the battlefield. Broken tanks, scattered debris, smoke, craters, ruined trucks. Every piece of metal, every shadow, every noise could become a weapon if used wisely. He smiled faintly. He was not brave. He was just smart. And right now, brains were stronger than bullets. The first trick was sound. Ethan used the tank's engine and fire to create fake movements. He made the turret rotate in random directions. He fired blanks at points where there were no soldiers. Explosions roared behind the tank to make it sound like more attacks were coming. From a distance, enemy soldiers froze. "Do you hear that?" one shouted. "There's more of them, inside the smoke." The commander frowned. "It's impossible. Check the lines." "How many are there?" "Too many," said a soldier, his voice shaking. I can't see them all. There are noises everywhere. That was Ethan's plan. Confuse them. Make them think the battlefield was full of soldiers. Make them hesitate. Make them fear. Next, he created fake movements on the ground. He pushed old tires, burning debris and pieces of metal with the tank's treads. They rolled slowly across the field, making the soldiers think a squad was moving from one side to the other. He kicked up dust at random points to simulate footsteps. Each sound, each shadow made the enemy nervous. A group tried to flank him from the right. Ethan saw them through the small periscope. He did not fire immediately. He waited. He let them get closer. Then, using the tank's main gun, he fired a shot near the rocks behind them. The debris exploded with a loud crash. Soldiers thought a sniper was firing. They froze. Panic spread. Ethan ducked as bullets hit the tank. Sparks flew inside. Smoke thickened. But he was not scared. Fear had become a tool. Every nerve in his body was focused on one goal: survive. And stop the enemy. Another group of soldiers tried to advance from the left. Ethan used fire from the tank's burning side to blind them. The flames reflected off the metal and ash filled the air. He let the heat and smoke create illusions of movement. The soldiers stopped. They shouted to each other. Wait, where are they? There must be more. The commander realized the boy was doing something no one expected. It's not a tank, he said. It's a trap. He's not just fighting. He's controlling the battlefield. Ethan knew the commander was watching. He needed one last trick. One that would make the soldiers think twice before advancing. He revved the tank's engine as loud as possible. Then he fired a shot into a pile of rubble near the edge of the field. Dust, sparks, and fire shot up. From the distance, it looked like a whole squad was attacking from there. Soldiers screamed, thinking they were surrounded. Confused, they fired at the shadows. Some accidentally hit each other. Others ran for cover. The boy in the tank was unstoppable, not because of strength but because of cleverness. For hours, or maybe minutes, Ethan could not tell, the battle became a chess game. He was the king. The enemy soldiers were pawns. Every move, every shot, every sound was calculated. Every shadow and fire made them second-guess their own senses. The boy crouched low inside the burning tank, using small levers and buttons to keep the engine alive. He did not have much ammo. He did not have reinforcements. He did not have a backup plan. He had only his mind. And it was enough. From a hill, the enemy commander watched his soldiers. Panic spread in their faces. Pull back. Fall back. We cannot see them. But Ethan did not attack blindly. He knew the battlefield better than the enemy. He guided the chaos, keeping soldiers away from his tank, while creating fear that something massive was coming for them. He moved to a crater, making the tank appear destroyed. Smoke and fire hid him perfectly. Then he fired again far to the side. Another explosion. Another illusion of movement. Another wave of panic. Soldiers shouted to each other. It's everywhere. Where is it? The commander banged his fist on the map table. I will not lose to a boy, he yelled. But he knew deep inside his army was trapped. They could not move forward. They could not retreat. And that was Ethan's plan all along. He smiled through the smoke and pain. One boy. One tank. And 250 trained soldiers stopped in their tracks. All because he had brains over bullets. Ethan knew this was only the beginning. He had survived the impossible once, but the enemy would not give up. They would come again. Stronger. Smarter. Faster. He took a deep breath. Ash filled his lungs, sweat burned his eyes. He closed his eyes for half a second. Then he opened them. And the battlefield changed forever. The sun had fallen behind the horizon. Darkness slowly swallowed the battlefield. Smoke and fire painted the night in shades of red and black. Shadows moved like ghosts over the craters and broken metal. The air was thick with ash, gunpowder, and the cries of the wounded. Ethan crouched behind the tank, breathing heavily. His body ached. Cuts covered his hands and arms. Smoke burned his lungs. But he was alive. Still alive. And the enemy had not moved. For a moment, the night was silent. The only sounds were the crackle of flames and the distant moans of soldiers. Then the shouting started. 250 enemy soldiers were regrouping, determined to finish what they had started. They were trained, coordinated, and now furious. They had lost men, trucks, and confidence, all to one boy. Ethan gripped the machine gun tightly. His fingers were raw. His eyes scanned the battlefield. Every shadow could be a soldier. Every sound could be an ambush. He knew he could not hold them forever. Not with bullets alone. Not with a burning tank. But he had survived impossible odds before. He could do it again. The first wave came quietly from the left. Two squads tried to flank him through the smoke. Ethan fired carefully, taking them down one by one. Sparks flew in the dark. Shadows of soldiers fell across the craters like broken puppets. The second wave came from the right. They thought they could sneak past him while he dealt with the first group. Ethan had already anticipated this. He rolled a burning barrel toward them. Flames erupted, scattering them in every direction. Panic spread quickly among the soldiers. Behind him, the tank groaned under the heat. Smoke poured from every crack. The metal burned Ethan's skin, but he ignored it. He had no time to feel pain. Pain was a luxury he could not afford. He remembered the farm. His mother, his sister, his father's words. Fear did not control him. Fear became a tool. Each second of panic he felt became focus, became strategy. The enemy commander appeared at the edge of the battlefield, flashlight in hand. He signaled his troops. Advance. Surround him. 250 soldiers spread out, trying to encircle Ethan completely. Nightfall gave them an advantage. But he had the battlefield memorized. Every crater, every destroyed vehicle, every shadow became part of his trap. Ethan fired again. One soldier fell into a crater. Another tripped over debris, his rifle clanging to the ground. A third tried to run and was stopped by the burning remains of a truck Ethan had moved earlier. The soldiers panicked. Confusion spread faster than bullets. But they kept coming. He could see their eyes in the dark, determined, angry, and terrified at the same time. They had trained to kill. And yet, one boy was stopping them. Ethan's tank shook violently as another shell hit it. Flames burst from the side. Smoke filled the cabin. His vision blurred. His body trembled. Every nerve screamed to stop, to escape. But he did not. He could not. He aimed the turret carefully, firing one shot at a time. Each explosion became a message. I am still here. I am not afraid. Bullets hit the tank's armor. Sparks flew. Metal bent and twisted. He knew he could not survive another hit like that. He needed a new tactic. Ethan jumped out of the tank for a moment, barely noticeable in the shadows. He moved quietly, dragging burning debris behind him to create fake footprints and fire paths. Enemy soldiers followed blindly, thinking he was retreating, only to run into his traps. One by one, soldiers fell into craters or tripped over rubble. Some fired at shadows, hitting each other by mistake. Chaos spread like wildfire. The commander shouted, "Form a line. Don't let him escape." Ethan paused. He could see the fear in their eyes. They were strong, trained, and ruthless, but they were human. He had learned how humans think. And now he used it. He fired a shot into the far distance, making it sound like a group was approaching from another side. Smoke from the burning barrel rolled toward them. Shadows danced. Soldiers hesitated, unsure if they were advancing into a trap. Then Ethan disappeared behind the tank, silent, waiting for the perfect moment. The enemy commander cursed under his breath. "This is impossible. A boy alone, stopping 250 of us." Ethan's heart raced. He knew he could not hold this forever. Ammo was almost gone. The tank could collapse at any second. His body was weak, bleeding, and exhausted. But he had survived worse. He took one last deep breath. Then he fired strategically, letting explosions, shadows, and fire convince the soldiers that the battlefield was full of traps, ambushes, and reinforcements. Every step they took became cautious. Every movement slowed. By midnight, the enemy had stopped. They refused to advance. Their commander looked over the battlefield and realized it was over. 250 soldiers, trained, armed, and ruthless, were stopped completely by one boy in his burning tank. Ethan slumped against the tank. His hands were shaking. His lungs burned. Every inch of his body ached. He could barely move. But he was alive. The battlefield was silent now. Only the crackling fire and distant groans remained. The boy had done the impossible. He had survived. He had stopped an army. But he knew it was not over. The enemy would regroup. They would try again. And when they did, he would have to be ready. For now, though, he allowed himself one small smile. He had faced the impossible. And he had won. The first light of dawn painted the battlefield in pale shades of gray and orange. Smoke still rose from burned vehicles. Craters yawned like wounds across the ground. The air was thick with ash and silence. Ethan lay beside his tank, exhausted. Every muscle ached. His clothes were torn and soaked in sweat and grime. His hands were raw. His lungs burned with every breath. The boy who had stopped 250 soldiers the night before was barely conscious now. He looked across the field. Enemy soldiers were nowhere to be seen. Their vehicles lay scattered, destroyed or abandoned. Silence stretched like a heavy curtain. For a moment, it seemed as if the battlefield had forgotten him. But Ethan knew better. This calm was not peace. It was the eye of the storm. The enemy commander stood at the hilltop, binoculars in hand. He surveyed the field, his face pale. His army had been stopped. His carefully trained soldiers had been held at bay by a single boy. The man's pride and fear warred inside him. "Where is he?" one officer asked. "He cannot still be alive, sir." The commander shook his head. "He is alive. He is here. And he is dangerous. Do not underestimate him again." Ethan did not move. He could barely lift his head. But he could still see. The field was full of traps he had created the night before: burning barrels, twisted metal, craters and shadows. Every step the enemy took would be cautious. Every movement could lead them into chaos. He closed his eyes for a moment. His mind raced. He was tired, injured, out of ammo. Yet he was alive. And that was enough. The enemy commander raised his hand. Reinforcements were coming. Fresh soldiers, disciplined and hungry for victory. They did not know what had happened the night before. They thought the battlefield was quiet. They thought the boy was dead. But Ethan knew the truth. He would not let them pass. Not today. The new soldiers arrived at the edge of the battlefield, stepping carefully into the gray light. Smoke curled around their boots. The broken tanks and burned trucks made the field look like the end of the world. They hesitated. The air was heavy with fear. Stories of the boy had already spread among the surviving soldiers. Ethan's tank groaned. It was badly damaged, burning slowly from the inside. The metal creaked with each small movement. He climbed back inside, every movement painful but necessary. Through the periscope he watched the enemy. They were cautious, hesitant, confused. The boy had won more than battles, he had won fear. He reached for a small control lever, pushing it carefully. A barrel tipped over. Sparks flew. Smoke drifted across the battlefield. He fired a shot far to the side. Another explosion. The soldiers flinched, thinking an entire squad had appeared from nowhere. Ethan smiled faintly. Not because he was brave but because he was smart. The commander watched his men. Panic was spreading. "Hold the line," he shouted. "Do not let him escape. He cannot be everywhere." But Ethan was everywhere. He moved his tank slowly through the debris, making noise here, creating shadows there, using smoke, fire and broken metal to his advantage. Every time soldiers tried to advance, he tricked them into traps, into confusion, into fear. Hours passed. Time seemed frozen. The enemy did not know where the boy was. They did not know how many soldiers he had, or if he had any at all. Every shot, every explosion, every shadow made them hesitate. And they stopped moving. For the first time in the battle, 250 enemy soldiers froze completely. Not one step forward. Not one shot fired. The field was still except for the crackling fire. The boy had stopped them. Ethan's body ached. He was weak. His hands shook as he gripped the tank controls. He could barely breathe. Yet he felt a strange calm. He had survived the night. He had stopped an army. And now he was ready for whatever came next. From the hill, the commander cursed under his breath. "This is impossible," he muttered. "One boy, he has stopped my entire battalion. He has no reinforcements, no weapons. And yet, we cannot advance." Ethan knew the enemy would not stay frozen forever. He knew that. Reinforcements would come. Larger forces. Better equipment. But for now he had time. Time to recover, to plan, to survive. He closed his eyes for a moment and thought of home. The farm. His family. His father's words about fear. "Fear does not control you," his father had said. Ethan had learned that lesson. Fear was a tool. Fear could be used to survive. And that was what he had done. The battlefield was quiet now. The enemy soldiers were stopped, frozen in fear. The boy, just 18 years old, had held the impossible line. Alone. But Ethan knew the war was not over. Tomorrow they would come again. Stronger. Smarter. Determined. And he would have to face them once more. For now, though, he allowed himself one small victory. The sun rose higher. Shadows stretched across the battlefield. Smoke curled lazily from burned tanks and twisted metal. And Ethan, exhausted and battered, had survived. He was a farm boy. A boy who had faced impossible odds. And for one moment in history he had stopped 250 trained soldiers in their tracks. The battlefield was quiet. The morning sun had risen fully, casting pale light over the craters, burned tanks and twisted metal. Smoke still curled in thin gray ribbons from the fires that had burned overnight. The sounds of war had faded, replaced by a haunting silence. Ethan lay beside his tank, exhausted. Every part of his body ached. His hands were raw and blistered. His lungs burned. His clothes were torn and blackened. Blood dried on his skin. He could barely move. Yet he was alive. He lifted his head slowly. Across the field, the enemy had stopped. Their soldiers no longer moved. Their commander had ordered a retreat, at least for now. 250 trained soldiers, armed and disciplined, had been stopped by a single boy. Ethan allowed himself a weak smile. For a moment he thought of home, the quiet farm, the green fields, the small house where his mother and sister waited. For a moment he thought of his father, who had taught him that fear could never control a man. And he realized something. He had survived not just because of courage but because of will, intelligence, and determination. Footsteps approached. The sound of boots on the dusty ground made him tense. He expected the enemy returning for revenge. But it was not the enemy. Allied soldiers arrived. Reinforcements looking in disbelief at the battlefield. They saw the destroyed tanks, the burning trucks, and the single boy lying beside the smoking tank. "Is he alive?" one soldier whispered. "Yes," another said. "He did this alone." The commanding officer approached Ethan. His eyes widened as he took in the damage, the smoke, and the exhausted figure. "You stopped an entire battalion?" the officer asked, disbelief in his voice. Ethan tried to nod, but his body could barely respond. The officer helped him to his feet. Around them, soldiers shook their heads, murmuring in amazement. The news spread quickly. Across the battalions. Across the fields. The story of the farm boy who stopped an army became legend in hours. Soldiers told it to each other in hushed voices. Commanders wrote it in reports. Ethan became more than a boy. He became a symbol. Months later, his story reached the higher ranks. Officers spoke of him in meetings. His name appeared in newspapers. Children drew pictures of him, a small boy with a burning tank and courage larger than mountains. At home, his mother and sister finally saw him return. They cried, hugging him tightly. The farm had survived. Their lives had been saved. And the boy who had once tended the fields became a hero of the battlefield. Yet Ethan never boasted. He never sought glory. He knew what he had done was extraordinary, but he also knew it was fear, courage, and intelligence together that had won the day. He had fought for survival, for his family, and for the innocent. Years later, war schools taught his story. Students studied how a single mind, a single person, could manipulate the battlefield, create fear, and survive the impossible. They studied his courage, his ingenuity, and his heart. Generals gave medals. Soldiers bowed. Historians wrote volumes. Yet, in the quiet of his home, Ethan still thought of the farm, of the fields, of simple life. He had done the impossible, but he was still just a boy from a small valley. The legend of Ethan Hale, the farm boy who stopped 250 soldiers with a burning tank, lived on. Not only as a tale of war, but as a story of intelligence over force, courage over fear, and humanity's hidden power. History remembers generals. Battles are remembered. Strategies are studied. But legends are sometimes just boys who refuse to give up, who face impossible odds, and change the world with determination and mind. And somewhere, on a quiet farm, Ethan looked at the fields and smiled, knowing that the impossible had been done, and that his story would be told for generations.